Hey, welcome to Fearless Life Video Podcast. We are glad that you're joining us today for episode number 13. I got my beard oil on. I'm ready to go. Hey, welcome in, everybody. It's good to see you. Just wanted to remind you, as we say almost every time, this podcast exists to offer a way to overcome fear from a biblical perspective, and through that, bring a renewed sense of hope and encouragement as you experience increasing victory over fear, so you can come to know what it means to truly live a fearless life. Now look, Sierra, we know we are not talking about not having fear at all. Yeah. I mean, that's like nearly impossible.
It's not possible. Yeah.
I mean,
we're human. Even Jesus had anxiety and stress. It talks about that in scripture. So if he had that and he was fully man, fully God, I mean, we
so it's going to come.
Experience that too. Yeah.
It's going to come. Yeah. It's literally impossible to have no fear, no anxiety. We're going to experience it. But here's the good thing. With God's help, we can overcome fear more and more so that we can experience overwhelming victory more and more, thus having a fear less and less life. Yeah. We fear less. We have anxiety or allow it to affect us in our lives less and less as we come to know who God is and put our faith in him. So here's the declaration I want you to say with me. This is so important. It's simple, but it's so important and it's powerful. Fear will not overtake me. We need to just go ahead and make a decision right now, right here, today. Fear's not going to overtake me. Anxiety is not going to overtake me. But I will overcome my fear, anxiety, and worry and all that by my faith in God. It's only by our faith in God. And we can trust him. We can have faith in him to do what he said he would do. That's what's really awesome. 2 Timothy 1:7, you know, this is our mainstay scripture for this podcast. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of a sound mind. I'm so thankful that we can have a sound mind. The peace of God can literally reign in our hearts and minds when we allow him to do what he wants to do. He's given us that spirit, not of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. One other scripture I want to leave with you today is Psalm 34:4. I prayed to the Lord. Psalm 34:4. I prayed to the Lord, and he answered me. He freed me from all my fears. So good.
Yeah, it's good.
So good. So just be encouraged today. You're not alone. You think you're the only one going through that? Yeah. No, there's somebody else going through something similar at least. May not be exactly the same as you, but we all go through stuff that's just like, we don't even know what to do sometimes. We don't even know how to handle it. I'm like, well, what do we do now? But God will help you if you allow him to. That's the key. You have to allow him to. So anyway, man, I'm glad to have our guest today.
I'm really excited.
Are you really?
Are you going to do our normal thing that?
Well, you know, we have to, right? We can't go on.
Everybody expects it at this point.
We can't go on. We have to give you not weekly. We actually took a couple weeks off during the Christmas holidays, and we're glad to be back. Glad you're joining us again today. We have to do our weather report. Got to do it. Currently, right now, it's 36 degrees. It's, a little bit of rain showers outside, 87% humidity. The wind's northwest at 10 miles per hour. And the sunset's going to be at 5:34. Not that you care. But it's 36 degrees right now. And here's the thing. People have been freaking out over the last week.
Listen, we're in Texas. Just remember, we're in Texas.
Central Texas. We don't get much of anything, but if we get anything as far as precipitation in the wintertime, it's ice. We don't always get the snow. Now, where we used to live up outside of Fort Worth, we got more snow for sure. Yeah. And in fact, it's snowing there right now, I think.
Yeah. Makes me mad.
Sierra's like, I'm jealous. I want to go up there.
Yeah. Well, we have all of our friends posting like on their Instagram and like Facebook and stuff. And I'm like, I want to be in the snow. Yeah, and it's snowing really good. Like there's probably like 4 or 5 inches of snow. And I'm like, I want to be in the snow. Anyways.
I don't think it's going to get below,
it's not cold
32.
enough.
It's not even going to get to 32. So we're not really in fear of it freezing and the roads getting bad. So it's just cold. And it would have been nice, kind of, if it would have been like this in December,
Yeah.
Christmas Day, it was 70 degrees. What the heck?
I don't know.
Anyway.
Anyways, introduce our guests today.
Introducing our guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Our guests today are Michelle Watson and her daughter, Kailey. Michelle and her husband, Dwayne, pastor Coast Life Church in Gulfport, Mississippi. And Kailey is the kids pastor there at Gulfport, in Gulfport, Coast Life Church. I'll get it right. So anyway, welcome, guys. Wow.
Hello.
Thank you.
That's awesome. You guys are here. So they're here visiting my mom, actually, who lives in the same town, well, just outside of town where we live here in Waco. So she's here for a week, and you guys actually fly home tomorrow.
Tomorrow evening.
They said it's supposed to be sunny tomorrow afternoon, so flight should be good. But anyway, welcome. Glad you guys are here.
We're excited.
It's cool.
Yes.
We're honored.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, we're honored and glad you could be here. Glad you said yes to doing the podcast. So Michelle is my sister. Of course, Kailey obviously is my niece. She has two siblings younger than her, Darian and Micah, and Kaylee's 28 now.
You just made that, like broadcasted that.
What?
You're not supposed to tell a woman's age.
Oh, she's my niece.
I'm just kidding. It's fine.
Darian is 24 and Micah's 22.
Darian's about to be 25.
What? Oh, yeah.
We're a month apart.
That's right. Yeah, Darian's birthday's in March and yours is in April. So my wife and Michelle were pregnant at the same time with Darian and with Sierra. So yeah, that was fun. Anyway, so you guys, obviously, I don't want to. There's really no specific subject matter here. So I was about to say I don't want to get off subject, but there's no subject matter. We're just talking life. My sister Michelle and I grew up in East Africa. Our parents were missionaries for 30 some years, 7 years. And so we had quite an upbringing. We were born and raised in Indiana till we went, and you were like 5 when we went?
I was 5. You were 12, right?
I was 11.
11.
Yeah.
Okay.
I turned 12 that year.
Yeah. That sounds
1977. Seems ancient now. Anyway, no comments from you two.
It is ancient.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so we grew up there. And of course, Michelle obviously was there a lot longer than I was. I was there from 11 and a half to 18. And actually, so about 8 years or so and 6 years in country. But man, it was weird in a way, but it was so I wouldn't trade it personally.
No, it was. I'm thankful for it. Best childhood ever. Really, I mean, we had the opportunity to do things that other people didn't.
Oh, we got to travel and go to countries, not only on the way there or on the way back, which you guys got to go to a few more than I did. So I'm not happy about that. Still,
sound too bitter.
A little bitter.
Sometimes being the baby's a good thing.
Anyway, so you were there a lot longer than I was, and grew up in Malawi and then Tanzania, depending on how you want to say it.
Never heard it said that way.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Tanzania. And then we both went to boarding school, which you ended up going there longer than me too. I was there for my junior and senior year, and you were there from 7th grade to 12th grade.
11, 12, yeah.
Minus a year in the States or whatever. So, so we have a varied life and experiences. And like you just said, I'm so thankful. I wouldn't have changed it. And we've had so many opportunities, and what a blessing to do what we've done, because I hear stories, and I'm sure you have too, of other missionary kids, MKs as we call them, that didn't have great experiences. And I told you I just went to my class reunion back in June, which your mind when you go there, because this was the first one I went to.
Oh, okay.
I've never gone. I've wanted to, but it's like 2 or 3 of them at least, something happened, couldn't do it, or finances were tight, or scheduling, whatever. And so this is the first time. So your mind, when I'm walking and I see these people, some of them have changed. It's like, who's that? No. And others, you're like, know who that is right off the bat. But you think you're going to like, and in some ways we do. We pick up right where we left off. Mm-hmm. It's weird. 40 years we've been graduated from high school. I know, right? It's crazy. She's like, wow. 40 years. What?
Yep. Old.
I don't feel like I should be there. I don't know how I got here.
Yeah, it's weird.
And you, how many years have you been?
30, right? Is that right? No. How old am I? 89? How long is 89 from now?
Oh, so you graduated 5 years after I did.
I did. So,
but you're, 5.5, 6 years younger than me. So, okay. Well, you probably, was it because maybe you started school early in Malawi?
Yeah, I think I was younger because I graduated when I was 17.
Okay.
I think most
that makes
people are 18, right? When you graduate from high school. So yeah. Just because of the way my birth date was, it fell in that right spot.
So you're at 35 years then, sister.
Okay. Well, there you go.
She's trying to keep the years as long as she can.
What?
Yeah.
And so we have a brother in between us. He's 4.5 years younger than me. And you guys are like, what, 16
months apart. So let's see, 36 then?
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's weird.
It is.
Okay, so I want to ask, like, let's go back a little bit and talk, not to get like, let's all your secrets. No. But like with you,
we have
Michelle,
to go. No.
With you, like, what is your story? Like, obviously you grew up as a missionary kid. You grew up around Jesus, knowing the Lord. But like, what is your background story? Like, how did you really come to know Christ? Like, when did you actually encounter the Lord and was like, I'm not on my parents' faith anymore? Like, when was that moment for you?
Let's see. I was probably 7, I think, when there was some ministry gathering. And I remember at that time they had the service for the kids. And I remember going, I want to give my life to Jesus, right? Because like you said, knew about it from the day I was born. And so I do remember going down to the altar and saying, yes, I want to accept Jesus into my life. But, as I grew, older, and then I think it was probably around college where I finally realized, okay, I felt like I needed to challenge myself. Am I believing this because mom and dad have said this is the right way to go and because I've heard it my whole life? Or is this really the real thing? Mm-hmm. Is there another answer out there? And so I didn't do it out of lack of belief. I think it was out of, I really want to know what I believe. Yeah. I want to make sure that I am on the right path and that I can give evidence, right? What the word says, give evidence for what I believe. And so it was during those college years where I really just started studying more and going, okay, why do I believe this? Why is this true? Why is Jesus the only way? Why is he the Son of God? And so it was in those years where I think it really, I guess if you will, solidified in my heart and soul, like, yeah, mom and dad were saying the right thing, but this is my faith. This is my decision. I know he's the way, the truth, and the life. And so I think it was in those years. And I think it was good for me because I really needed, as you get in conversations with more people and I think living overseas, you get exposed to more religions, more ways of thinking, right? And so it wasn't just this American gospel, but it really was, do I believe the gospel of God, the word, not for just what people say it should be, but, be able to defend it. And so I think that was good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, it's good. What about you, Kailey? Like, how do you, yes, you're 28, like you're in ministry now, so old. But like, how did you really, we talked about this already some, but like, just share kind of what your story is. And like, I think we were kind of talking about this yesterday. Like, sometimes I felt like growing up, I didn't have this big testimony, to share. Like,
so thankful for that.
Right. But it's like one of those things, like I remember growing up in my youth group, I was the only one that had parents that were still married. Yeah. Literally. And like all of the kids, they were either adopted, their parents were divorced, they had abusive parents. Like, it was just rough. And so, I know for me, I was like, I don't have this, like, I wasn't addicted to drugs and then came to Jesus, which again, I'm so thankful for. But like for you, was it kind of the same thing? Did you have like this really big encounter with God, or did you just know, like, and obviously we all have gotten saved at some point, but like, what's your kind of background with the Lord and all that?
He's always been there since the very beginning. And he's so good that God is such a gentleman to wait for us to say yes. Mm-hmm. And so, I look up to my parents. We have a family where there's ministry on both sides, missionaries, pastors. And so it's easy to fall into, I'm going to love Jesus too. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I gave my life to Jesus and got baptized when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And so I know for a lot of people, that's like, 8 years old, isn't that too young? Like, shouldn't you wait a while? And there's not an age choice. There shouldn't be a specific time where you can give your life to Jesus. It really is for that kid. Do they understand?
Yeah.
And so I remember when Dad asked me not only, of course, about salvation, but I also had to understand what sanctification is. Because I'm not the same Kailey when I was 8, obviously.
Right.
I'm not the same when I was 16. I'm not even the same when I was 20.
Yeah.
So sanctification is walking with Jesus, because if it wasn't like that, man, I would have to be getting baptized every 10 years, like if that's the case. Because
all right, it's our anniversary to get baptized again.
All right, it's that time. But it doesn't work like that. God knows my heart. But when I was 8 years old, not only did I understand who and what Jesus has done for me and why, but I want it to be real. I don't want it to fall into family tradition.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be my own.
Yeah, right. Like
So
you're on your own faith.
Yeah. And so when I was 8, that's when I made the commitment. I still remember getting baptized. That was in Florida, right? Where was that? It was at the beach.
That's cool.
We were at the beach, and I remember when Dad walking me out into the water, of course, introducing everyone to who I was and, what I've decided to do. And I don't even know if I told Mom and Dad this, but I remember being baptized. I remember going under the water and feeling like I was under there for a long time. I was like, all right, it's time. I'm good. Dad was really making sure, I was really clean.
Yeah. Wanted to seal the deal.
Purify her, oh Lord.
Yeah. And it's funny because God even brought this to my attention not a long time ago. When I got baptized that day, being underneath the water, I remember that feeling of, man, it's going to be like this. Like my dad, I can see my dad through the water, but I don't see his face clearly. And I remember feeling like that's what it's going to be like in my life with God. He's close. I may not see him, but I know he's there.
Yeah.
And I remember that feeling. I was 8 years old. Like,
Wow.
Kids have wild imagination. Even to this day, I'm like, is that something I dreamed about?
Right.
God showed that to me not long ago. He's like, hey, that's what your life is going to be like. I'm going to be near. You're not going to know my face. You're not going to see me clearly, but you know that I'm near you, and you're going to know that I'm your father. And so I think that's been my life of knowing that I'm saved, knowing why I'm saved, not just following what my family has done, but making it truly my own and growing in that and being thankful to not have the crazy testimony.
Yeah.
I have a friend that's asked me, she's lived a life very similar to ours. Her dad is also in ministry, and she asked me, she's like, aren't you thankful? Or she asked me, no. She said, are you thankful to have not a crazy testimony, or do you wish that you had one? And I thought about it because no one's ever asked me that before. Like, do I wish of a harder testimony? And I thought about it, and I looked at her, I said no, because who am I to say I wish the enemy had more impact in my life?
Yeah.
And I don't want to pray that over me. I'm thankful, because then we can show, especially for you and I, Sierra, we can look to other girls and say, hey, it's possible to follow Jesus and live a life that's clean.
Yeah.
Is it perfect? No.
Yeah.
But live a life that really is pure.
Yeah.
And know when to say yes and no when it's right to say no. And so I was thankful to say that. No one's asked me that before. We get the common question, oh, are you the good kind of pastor's kid or the bad kind of pastor's kid?
Right.
And I hate that that's a trend. That's a thing.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm thankful to say, what are you talking about? No.
Yeah.
I love what my parents do.
Yeah.
I honor what they do. And I hope I set that example everywhere I go.
Right.
Yeah,
If
sure.
someone doesn't know me.
Well, and we always, I've said a lot in preaching or teaching, what I'm saying is not coming from a place of perfection.
Yeah.
It's from a place of experience and what I've already seen God do in my life. And so, you're not talking about, yes, I'm holy and I'm perfect and watch me because I'll never make a mistake. No, it's not like it, right? I mean,
Dad thinks that sometimes. I'm not perfect, Dad. I'm not perfect either, Dad.
Okay, we need to talk, Dwayne.
I'm just kidding.
Anyway,
Love you,
but
Dad.
it's not. We're not perfect, and we're going to mess up. We're going to say things we shouldn't. We're going to think things we shouldn't. We're going to do things we shouldn't. But I get encouraged when I see people like David and God saying he's a man after his own heart. David messed up royal more than once. And yet, I think one of the things that caused God to say that about him was because he was quick to recognize the sin and repent
Forgive
and
me,
ask
Lord.
for forgiveness. And God helped me to do that. Now, that doesn't mean, I can just do whatever I want when I want and however bad it is or whatever. No. That's not living a life. And like the Apostle Paul obviously teaches, hey, so since there's more grace, we should sin more, right? He goes, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So we know how that works. But I'm just thankful that, yes, we can live a life of holiness, righteousness, of course, being in right standing with God all the time. we're still not going to be perfect. But we can live an example of saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I messed up, but I'm going to get it right. Yeah. And I'm going to keep moving towards God and not away from him. And so that's awesome that you feel that way and you have a relationship with the Lord. And you're one of the good pastor's kids.
Well,
that doesn't always happen. You're right. It's sad, but it's true.
Well, we were kind of talking yesterday too, like, why does the Lord have so much favor on our family? Even though sometimes it's like, Lord, are you even there? But I think too, like with talking about, you know, whether we have a big testimony, any testimony is a testimony. It's like it's yeah. And so I think like, how cool is it that the Lord had grace upon us? So we could be the pastor's kids that are the ones that still living for Jesus, that still love the Lord. Because I have some friends that when we went to like PK retreat or whatever, and since we're in the North Texas district, we go to PK retreat and like now they're not serving the Lord and they hate the church. And the reason they hate the church, especially one person I know specifically, is because their dad spent more time at the church than he did at home and prioritized the church over his family. And so that person's still very, you know, has a hard heart and is just not ready to commit back to the Lord yet. But I'm just like, Lord, thank you for having grace upon us. Because like, I mean, we could have been, I was telling my husband this the other day, John, I was like, you know, I could see myself, like, if I wasn't saved, I could see myself as like a party girl. I love to be social with people. Like, and the fact that like the Lord like could save me, you know, was like, I mean, obviously I never did those things, but I totally, if I didn't know Jesus, I could see myself, you know.
That's good to know.
You don't have to worry about me. No, I was too scared. Are you kidding? I was so scared. Yes.
We
and then
honoring fear.
Yeah. Which, especially with my mom working at the city, she knows all like the police officers. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I'd be getting in trouble. Like just for standing somewhere that I shouldn't be, like, you know. No, but seriously, like, I'm just so thankful for the Lord's grace. Cause like, man, like we all wouldn't be where we are without the Lord's grace, but just the fact that he has so much mercy on us because and I think even in being in ministry, there's so many things that we go through that we can relate to each other about, but people that aren't in ministry don't know, and that's not their fault. They just don't know. But there's so much spiritual warfare that we were talking about too. Like it's so real. But the fact that like we have the Lord on our side. So like, you know, we win in the end, we have the victory. And like Danny Gokey, I think we might have quoted this on the podcast, but Danny Gokey sings a song called Every Victory. I don't know if you've heard it with the Belonging Co. And he says, we don't worship for victory. We worship from a place of victory. And I was like, that's so good. And then I heard someone else speaking on that the other day, but it's just a good reminder and just think like we already have the victory in the Lord. Yeah. I kind of like went off a little sidetrack there, but it's just so good. Just a reminder of that. And to like, just be so thankful for his grace and that his mercies are new every morning.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. So what year, well, let me ask it this way. What you guys planted Coast Life Church, correct?
We did.
What year did you start the church?
That was in 2014. March of 2014.
Somebody was asking me the other day. Right. I remember that. Somebody was asking me the other day, how long have they been in Gulfport? And I'm like, oh my goodness. They've been there at least 10 years.
Yeah. We moved there in 2012.
So you've been there.
But we planted Coast Life in 2014.
Yeah. And we won't get into all the pre.
Yeah.
Let's just move on.
But yeah. Last March was our 10th year anniversary. So, you know, this year.
So it started in your church.
In our home. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, your home.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking to me one day. I called you, or you called me, and you're like, I said, so how's things going? We had like 70 people in our living room. She said we couldn't fit them all.
It was crazy. I mean, you know, there's things where you just know it's Jesus, but then there's other things where, you know, you're wow. Yeah. And that's how it was. The first time it was like 70. Wow. And then I think it was close to 100, but and then after the second week, we were like, we need a space.
We can't do this in our home, people.
And again, God just provided that. I mean, there was a place we found quickly, and we were there for, I think, 2 years. And then we moved to the space that we're at now that we're renting. And it has been Jesus all the way. It's not some plan we've made. It's not some program. It's not some, you know, you hear all the time, what did you do? We did was obedience.
What was your 5-year plan?
We were just obedient to Jesus. Yeah. He's the one that did it all. And wow. Yeah.
You know, on that point, I think that God has been speaking to me about some basic stuff. Mm-hmm. And here's what I mean by that. Nothing, absolutely nothing against those who do all of these promos and help churches and all that, because we've taken advantage of some of this stuff.
We've done some of that ourselves.
Yeah, we've taken some of it, and some of it's free, some of it's low cost, whatever. And so nothing against that. Some of those things have to be in place, so you have to learn how to do it maybe that way, or take it and, kind of shape it. Modify it, shape it for your ministry or your church, whatever. But I'm telling you, the basics, God's, I think, really been speaking to me is nothing. And I think he says this too, nothing against that, but here's what's going to grow your church. Here's what's going to grow your own personal life: prayer, obedience.
Yeah.
Okay. What's next? Prayer and obedience.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, literally, if you think about it, I think that kind of covers everything in life.
It does. And because we want to be blessed, right? I mean, the end goal is, okay, we want to honor God and we want to be blessed. And so blessing follows obedience every time. I mean, you see it over and over in Scripture.
Yeah, that's true.
What happened? They were obedient and God blessed them, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's not always easy, especially when you think you're hearing God saying something or go a certain direction. You're like, that's funny. Oh, you're serious? Really? Like now? What? How? But, and I've preached on making sure that you are receiving and obeying God's dreams for you, not just your dreams. But if it's a God dream, guess what? It's always going to be harder than what you can do on your own. Yeah. So
why would he give you something when you don't need help to do it? Like he wants to help you.
Yeah. If you could do it on your own, then you don't need God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have a nice life. But every time that he asks us to do something, it's going to be some level, some part of it, or the whole thing. We can't do it. It's going to either God or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that's kind of cool, really. Although can be scary, as we've all experienced.
Yeah.
It can be scary, but it's good too, because God says, look, do you trust me or not? Mm-hmm. You either trust me and you're going to see some awesome things happen, or you don't. But then we get discouraged because you're like, doggone, God, I'm trying to obey you here. I'm praying. I'm seeking you. Ain't nothing happening. But then I have to remember, God's timing is perfect. I want it to happen now.
Yeah,
exactly.
Same.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? Yeah. Because you guys went through some times like that.
Yeah, I think again, it's that waiting time, right? Like you said, we always want everything now. We're of course, in the last 30 years, 40 years, we've become such an instant gratification society that even with my computer, we're old enough to remember that, the noise and, you're waiting for it to connect and we're like, oh, this is so great. And 10 minutes later you're connected and you're like, oh, this is fabulous. Like I still remember, when we got to send a fax to mom and dad and they got it within a minute. I was like, what? I didn't have to send a mail. I didn't have to call them and pay, $50 for a phone call.
And we used to do the video call, but it was like, very jerky.
Like when your FaceTime Wi-Fi's off.
If you got to talk for like 60 seconds or more, you're doing good, man.
That's
so you say everything real quick, as quickly as you can. Hi, here's the baby and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But and then now I can FaceTime somebody in Africa.
And it's clear. It's
no big deal.
Yeah.
What?
So it's like that instant gratification. And so we expect God to be, okay, let's get it. My timing is best, right? And God's like, no. Remember, my timing is best. And what's so amazing is when you've been praying for something, you're waiting for something, when it happens, you're like, wow, that was sudden. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it kind of shocks you, like you've been praying for it. And then when he does it, and I have to try to remind myself, I'm like, Michelle, you should learn this by now. But when he does it, I'm like, wow, that was so sudden. It was so perfect. And he's like, we've been through this a lot.
I do it every time.
Yeah, right? So, I think that's the problem is just learning. And of course, like you said, we've all been through that, just waiting on God's timing. And he's perfect every time. Yeah.
A couple things on that. I mean, I've talked about that too. If you read all the suddenlies in the Bible, there are times when it not only took days, weeks, months, it took years, decades. But when God decides to do something, literally in the snap of your fingers, a blink of your eye, boom. It happens. The other thing is, oftentimes what I've learned over the years, it's taken me a while, kind of like you, God says, we've been over this before. There's not any, how am I supposed to say this? Nothing happened. It's not like nothing is happening.
Oh yeah.
In between.
He's doing stuff. He's
You
working.
just can't see it. Yeah.
You just can't see it.
Yeah.
So the patience is, hopefully we grow in that as we're waiting. But he's doing something. Yeah, he's doing something in you. He's working in you, working on you, maybe helping you to help others do something else, whatever. So that time, in other words, is not wasted.
Yeah. And we always think that we're ready sometimes in that moment. So there's two things that just came to mind. I always think of when I'm in that waiting. I remember in Daniel where the angel comes and says, as soon as you started to pray, God heard that.
Yeah.
And I've been, to put it in my own terms, been, working my way. So it's not that you've been sitting here waiting and nothing's been happening. God has been working on that. And I have been, assigned by God to answer that prayer. But it was like, so it's just a reminder to me that even when I don't see it, God is working things out.
Absolutely.
And again, like sometimes it's on me. Like I remember there's times that I prayed, God, I'm ready for this right now. And looking back, I'm like, oh, there is no way I would have been ready.
Or he actually lets it happen. He's like, oh, you think you're ready? Let me have you try it out.
Oh, right.
And then you're like, oh, I really wasn't ready. You're right. Maybe I should take a step back.
Yeah.
I think it's good to remember too, like in prayer, if God is waiting and we have to keep praying, that's not him being mean.
Yeah.
He's not being mean.
No.
Right.
He's not trying to pick up. He's not, yes, he's testing us, but people don't like the word test because it's like, oh, I don't like that. But seriously, like he's doing it because prayer isn't for us. It's him seeing, are you going to continue? Are you going to continue to speak to me? Are you going to continue believing in me, even if it does take a year? Even if it does, just like all the people that we looked at the Bible, even with Moses, like, are you going to continue believing and trusting in me?
Right.
Even if you don't see it immediately.
Right.
Because it's not about you. At all.
Well, in that whole waiting time, it's graciousness, really. It's his grace.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how he shows his grace. You be thankful. And I know people don't say they like test. They're like, but how are you going to have a testimony?
Yeah.
If you don't, and that's true. I used to hear that all the time. I'm like, whatever, roll my eyes, shake my head. But it's true. You have to go through the test so you can have a testimony. God wants to prove himself in so many different ways.
Yes.
And I think the miraculous is happening way more than we want to admit or even recognize.
Yeah.
It's happening all the time. If it wasn't for God, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, like even when you see, like when we've been praying for our church to grow for like years, and even when we were up in the Fort Worth area, it was like, okay, Lord, like I don't know what else to do. Like I'm sitting here where we would fast and we would pray and we'd do all these things. I'm like, what else? Am I missing something? Am I just being dumb and not listening? Like what's going on? And then when he called us down here, I was like, that's not happening. Like, I'm not going to do that. And like, I think even y'all kind of felt that way too. Cause like, technically, you used to pastor this church when it was another church, when it was way bigger.
Well, I was a youth pastor.
Youth pastor. And it was thriving then. And now it's like, you're going to a church that's even smaller than what we were at before. And it's like, Lord, why? Like, what do you mean? Like you think, cause you think, when God's moving you somewhere, like we're going to a bigger church, it'll be great. And it's like, no. And I think part of that, at least for me, was like, which I have talked to them a little bit about this since I've been here, like just I've grown so much, spiritually since we've been here. And I think like we've talked about this a little before on the podcast, but like taking the first step of obedience and just saying yes, even since we've just said yes, like John and I took a massive pay cut. I mean, y'all took at least a good chunk of a pay cut. But we took a massive pay cut and yet we still were able to buy a house. Like we still like have, our cars are great. Like, and I mean, there's been things here and there, but it's just been, when you say yes to the Lord, like you said earlier, like blessings follow obedience.
Yes.
And so when you say yes to him, like your life is going to be forever changed. And so, and we were talking about this too, with one of my friends here at church, like you were saying, Kailey, earlier about the sanctifying you like every day kind of thing. Like it's not just we believe in like the once saved, always saved. Like the Lord's always saving us every day. You know, He's always sanctifying us, and like you've preached on that too. But just being reminded of that and like being like, okay, Lord, like thank you. Like when I say yes to you, it's going to be challenging, and there's going to be things that are going to be hard, and you're going to have to go through stuff and actually like grow through things too. But man, when you do it, like there's truly nothing better than saying yes to Jesus. And I mean, and it's hard for people to understand that when they don't know the Lord. And so that's why it's when the Lord gives you like little things here and there, which aren't little, they're actually massive, especially in the kingdom. And when He gives you people that are now on fire for Jesus that didn't know the Lord before, but now they're saved and they're bringing their families and all these things, it's like, okay, like maybe we're getting somewhere now, you know? And I've even told them before, like, even if it was just for that person, I've won. Like I'm done. Like, you know, my job is, I'm good.
Yeah.
So yeah, just continuing to be reminded of that, and that He's just good and faithful.
He is, absolutely. Well, before Sierra closes it out, just want to remind you what Mandy Hart says in her devotional: live a surrendered life, because that's the key to living a fearless life. Live a surrendered life. We're not just talking about surrendering our lives to just anyone, but we are talking about literally, fully, completely surrendering everything we have, everything we are, everything we ever hope to be, to God, the one and only true God of all the earth, God the Father, Jesus Christ His Son, and the Holy Spirit. We believe in the Trinity. We believe in the power that He brings. We believe in salvation, that He can save us from ourselves, from sin, from hell. We believe in forgiveness of sins, and we're thankful for His grace and His mercy, and the fact that His grace is really unmerited favor. Yep. And so He wants to show you that today. Yeah. He wants to give you favor. He wants to show you blessing by helping you to be delivered out of all those situations and problems and all those things that come our way. So God bless you, and I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, don't forget you can follow and like us on Spotify. And Spotify actually is doing a thing where now we can have comments again, because they like blocked it for a while. So now if you want to comment, do all the things. Same thing on YouTube, share, like, subscribe, you know, the whole spiel that he does all the time. Hit the bell for reminders. But yeah, we're so thankful for the family that we have, and just continue to grow this podcast family. So
yeah, thanks you guys for being here today.
Thank you.
It was fun. We really enjoyed it. Wish we had more time, but we try to keep it to under 45 if at all possible, because we like people to watch the whole thing, if you know. So anyway, love y'all, and we love you, and we appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time. God bless you.